just like to thank everybody for coming. I'd just like to thank everybody for their support with our altar talks that we've been having on our Saturdays, and we hope to continue it throughout the remainder of the year and beyond. I just would like to thank Joyce for taking the time to do this talk today, and I'm going to turn it over to Joyce.
Thank you. Thanks. So this is my book. The first thing I want to tell you about it is that I had nothing to do with the title or the cover art. Because it's, to me, the exact opposite of the content of the book. My favorite thing about the book is the way it started. So I'm a psychoanalyst, and I just moved out here after September 11th, and I had all this time on my hands, and I wasn't sure how to make a life here. And so I was thinking of the things that I really was compelled by in my practice in the city, and I was always moved by the fact that in any given week there would be women who would come in, women of all ages, and they would tell the same sorts of stories, and they'd be mortified by them. And they could be, some of them had to do with sexuality, some of them didn't, and they would say things like, I must be the only person who feels this way, or am I a bad person for this, am I a bitch for feeling this, or having done this. And I would have heard like 3 other women earlier in the week talk about the very same thing. And when I would share that with them, the shame that they were feeling washed away, because there was instantly a sense of community and normalization of their feelings. So I started to wonder how I could bring that to a wider group of women. So I decided to do a women's study. And I designed 63 open-ended questionnaires on every single theme of being female that I could think of. There were questions on depression and anxiety, there was a mental health cluster, there was a family cluster, being a mother, childbirth, life cycle things like aging and grief, relationship with your husband, with your sister, with your lover, with your daughter. And then there was even one question where I said, and if there's anything that I didn't ask, you can ask it and answer it. And all of the fields it was online, all of the fields were expandable, so women could write as much as they want. So women could literally talk about anything, at any length, and in any way that they wanted. And so my goal was to do the emotional, psychological companion to our bodies, ourselves. I wanted to compile a reference book. So you could look up the chapter on rape, and you could read 20 intimate accounts of women who lived through it and glean anything that you would find helpful in that. Or you could go to childbirth, whatever. And so when I shopped that book proposal around, no one would buy it because no one was buying reference books anymore because the internet had taken away reference departments. So they told me to scale down the project and resubmit. And I was bereft. I was so upset because 1,300 questionnaires had been filled out, and 450 women had, spilled their blood and guts to me, and I had promised them that I would get it out into the world, and I didn't know how to narrow it down because I was really attached to every one of those clusters, and I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided I would let the women scale it down. So this book is the 3 most popular topics that women wanted to talk about, and the study was women 18 to 105. So the 3 topics that were most popular in this order were menstruation, relationship with your mother, and masturbation. And the book is an analysis of what those 3 topics have in common, and why those were the 3 that women not only wanted to talk about, but wanted to share information on with each other. Because remember, the spirit of the study was that it was going to be a book for women to help women. So these are the things that women want to share and learn more about. So I'm going to read. So the book kind of covers the lifespan, and it's hard to choose what I'm going to read. But I did a reading in Sag Harbor earlier, and I didn't go over masturbation, so you guys are the masturbation crowd. For good or ill. No examples, no demonstrations, no audience participation required. Let's see. So I'm going to read from different sections. And then after, I'd love to have a discussion and talk about whatever you guys want. We send our daughters negative messages about their sexuality and ours, not only through what we say, but also through silent omission. In doing this, we teach our girls to hide their vibrancy and natural curiosity. and we lead them away from learning how to follow their own instincts. Even though they need to individuate from us in order to become adults, there's a difference between healthy individuation and a maternally imposed distance around the topic of all things sexual. They'll need the model of our intimacy with them to help them develop the skills necessary to weather any turbulence they'll encounter in sexually intimate relationships. Tools like honest communication, discussion, entitlement to their erotic life, and the ability to weigh decisions and consequences as they see fit. As mothers, we need to remember that sexuality isn't just about the body. It's very much about the mind, which takes counsel from the heart. If we taint her connection to her sexuality, we're also tainting the rest of her, because her feelings and thoughts are inextricably intertwined with who she is as a sexual creature, just like they are in us. We need to accept the responsibility of teaching our daughters about sexuality throughout their lives. When our girls are little, many of us sidestep the issue in ways that include such things as neglecting to teach them the correct names of their genitalia, telling ourselves they're too young to need to know. This is a discomfort that mothers have been passing on for generations, from a time when women lived with far less freedom and information than we now have. We don't teach our daughters today because we were never taught by our mothers, so it feels odd and inappropriate to us. But when we look at it from a more modern perspective, we can see that not teaching them is what's odd. The clearest evidence of this is that we begin to prepare our girls for absolutely everything else from the time they're young. And we do this exactly because our fantasies of them are fixed on the future. When they play with dolls, we imagine them as mothers. When their teddy bear's well-worn arm falls off and they tape it back on, we imagine them as doctors. We don't scoff at signing our daughters up for Little League because their bones and musculature haven't fully developed. And we don't warn them not to make friends with other children because they're too young to appreciate the sophisticated workings of interpersonal life. Even at the earliest, we imagine who they might be when they grow up and set about helping them become their best selves. We're brimming with anticipation for our daughters' development and have no problem whatsoever seeing that each experience they have will contribute to who they'll become. It comes to us effortlessly, all except for sexuality, that is. It's as if all of those non-sexual experiences live in the land of hope and sexuality in the land of dread. For many of us, when we hear even a hint of sexual curiosity in our daughters, our minds freeze because we haven't learned how to handle it. In all of these ways, we in effect say to our daughters, we want you to develop into the happiest adult you can be, so go out and experience the full vibrancy of all of the parts of your life, just not your sexuality.